50 FM 99.3 KNSI. Time once again for taking you home with VoigtJohnson Real Estate. Brandon Johnson back in studio with us.
Hello, sir.
Good morning. We talked about defining what quote unquote a spring market is last week, right?
Yeah.
Is there a difference for a buyer with a spring market as opposed to a seller in a spring market?
There absolutely is. I'd say my definition of a spring market, just to reiterate, is when the demand is disproportional to the supply of homes at any given time.
Okay.
Right? So that still is the constant on what a spring market, quote unquote, is.
Yeah.
Now, how you approach it as a buyer, you need to be aware of those dynamics. So the first thing to do if you're a buyer is being cognizant on what type of buyer are you? Are you a first-time home buyer? Are you moving into your forever home?
Okay.
What's the framework of your buying decision, right?
Gotcha.
Because that's going to dictate a lot of, is it important that you buy? Is your lease coming up and you don't want to renew another 12-month lease?
Right.
So what are your constraints? What are your framework as your buying situation?
Sure.
That's first and foremost.
By the way, when you rent an apartment or lease a home or whatever, you get nothing out of that at the end of the deal. So buy a home. I'm just saying.
Yeah, again, I'll always say it depends on what's the right time for you. Renting can be a good situation, but at some point in your life, buying makes
We've all
sense.
rented at one point or another, right?
Yep. The biggest thing, and this is agnostic of a spring market or not, but is doubly important as a buyer in the spring months when you're competing, is having your finances in place.
Oh boy, yeah.
You have to know what type of loan product you're qualified for, your down payment, do you need closing costs rolled in? All of those is going to give you a leg up if you have those in place before you start actively looking at homes.
Okay, how important is it knowing which loan program we may be eligible for or going with VA, FHA, whatever?
I think it's extremely important because that's going to be part of the terms of your offer.
Okay.
So if you're in a situation where you're competing, let's just say you're in multiple offers, and you're still trying to answer those questions at the time you're trying to make the offer, it really puts you behind the eight ball, so to speak.
Right.
And so it's important to know, am I going conventional? Am I going VA? What's my down payment? Where do I have my down payment funds? Closing costs, all of that should be relatively known and determined with your loan officer before you're at the point of making an offer.
How often do I communicate with my realtor in a situation like this?
Oh, I think it's important to, right off the bat, explain to your realtor who your lender is.
Okay.
And most times here locally, we all know all the lenders, we all know each other.
Yeah.
And to have that three-way communication line in place so that we as agents are going to need to document all of that in an offer. So it's important that we know exactly where they're coming up with that.
Yeah, but I don't want to be a pest. Do you know what I mean? I mean, I think you probably figure all of this out with your realtor as that relationship progresses.
Yeah, it's a once initially conversation, and maybe a follow up with the lender, but it's not. You're not being a pest by any means.
I just think this is a good thing for people to know, especially if they're a first time home buyer.
Absolutely.
Right? What are the rules here?
Absolutely. And again, you want to be. The next step is you just want to be engaged in the daily trends. What is the what's the supply look like in your price range?
Sure.
How many homes are going into multiple offers? It's good to be aware of all your competing homes when you go in. So when you go in a home, you know this is very competitively priced.
Right.
This is exactly what I'm looking for. This isn't what I'm looking for. It's good to have a good understanding of the market conditions in your price point.
Got to ask you this question right now. In the past weeks, I have always said that inventory is up. Rates appear to be coming down. Does that still hold true today?
Yeah, rates are ticking down. Yeah. I don't think they're going to drop dramatically, but I think they are coming into a very fair range. Yeah. And I think that's going to be, unlike 2 or 3 years ago where the volatility was extreme, I think we're pretty... the volatility is not going to be what we've seen in prior years, which is a good thing.
And inventory is up?
Yeah, I think that's going to be, that's always the question is what does the inventory levels in February and March look like? Okay. But I think it's going to be a very high demand spring in 2026.
I do too. I really, really do. Okay, so multiple offers. Is there a strategy that we should be aware of?
Yeah, I think it's important to discuss with your agent when you're first starting looking, if you notice that the price range that you're looking at, there's very frequently multiple offers. You need to have, do I feel comfortable waiving my inspection?
Oh,
Do
sure.
I feel comfortable going over list price and circumstances? What's my comfort level
Yeah.
in a variety of different circumstances? It's important to have those conversations with your agent.
Yes.
And your agent, our job is just to give you options. Your job is to understand and communicate your comfort level with each of those options. And it might vary based on the particular home that
Sure.
you're looking at too.
You know, I love this last line here. Educated and gaining an understanding of the entire process. As a purchaser, that is my responsibility.
You know, it's funny because as a listing agent, we always know what is the likelihood of buyer's remorse in a situation.
Sure.
And so I know if I get a strong buyer's agent that I'm familiar with, that I know has communicated the entire process,
Right.
there's less likely to be surprises,
Right.
which less likely to in turn create buyer's remorse.
Right.
It's the situation where the buyer's still learning after the purchase agreement is executed that can create those situations. So I know, like I said, great relationships with other agents. They've done an excellent job educating their clients. The probability of there being fallout for things that there shouldn't be are a good thing when working with those agents. So being educated with your agent helps everybody.
And it's a far different kind of thing if you're a first-time home buyer, like you said, or buying your forever home, because you've probably learned a thing or two along
The
the way.
challenge, there's challenges in every situation,
Sure.
and they are different. Again, it comes back to experience in handling each of those situations.
Comes back to VoigtJohnson Real Estate. How do we work with you guys?
Online at VoigtJohnson.com or 320-774-2400.
Brandon Johnson, thank you.
Thanks, Bob.